International Trade. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of June 23, 2022, and therefore members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. I would like to make a few comments for the benefit of witnesses and members. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly. With regard to interpretation for those on Zoom, you have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. For members in the room, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand, and for members on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. The clerk and I will manage the speaking order as best we can, and we appreciate your patience and understanding in this regard. Please also note that during the meeting, it is not permitted to take pictures in the room or screenshots on Zoom. Should any technical challenges arise, please advise me. We will suspend a few minutes in order to ensure that all members can participate fully. Today, we are meeting with the Minister of International Trade, Export, Promotion, Small Business, and officials. We will have two panels. The first will be regarding the committee study on Canadian mining firms abroad, and the second panel will be regarding the main estimates for 23-24. For the first panel, pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022, the committee is resuming its study of environmental and human rights consideration regarding Canadian mining firms abroad. We have with us today on the first panel the Honourable Mary Ng, Minister of International Trade, Export Promotion, Small Business and Economic Development. From the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development, we have Rob Stewart, Deputy Minister, International Trade, and Sarah Wilshaw, Chief Trade Commissioner. From the Department of Industry, Charles Vincent, Assistant Deputy Minister for Small Business and Marketplace Services. Welcome to all. We will start with opening remarks and then proceed with a round of questions. Minister Ng, I invite you to take the floor for an opening statement of up to 10 minutes, and you're doing only one opening statement for both panels. So we give you the floor for up to 10 minutes, please. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And it was my intention to be there in person, but thought best to not be coughing or sneezing all over my colleagues. So, so here I am virtually speaking to you. Merci.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
To you and to the vice chairs and indeed to all members of the committee. Let me begin by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. For those of us who are settlers or even immigrants to Canada, it's important to remember that Indigenous peoples have always been here and that we all have a role to play in reconciliation. I want to thank you again to the Standing Committee on International Trade to invite me to speak to you on the important work that you do, and very happy always to assist you with your work and to provide today an update to you and to Canadians on the work that our government has been doing on international trade. When I appeared before this committee 5 months ago, I said it was a pivotal time for our economy and for Canadians, for Canada's approach to trade. That remains true today. As we continue to recover from the pandemic and build our economic resilience, how we trade, with whom we trade, and what we trade matters more than ever. Securing, strengthening, and diversifying our supply chains matter more than ever. Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine have reminded us all that we cannot take our rules-based trading system for granted. The importance of Canada being a world leader in championing progressive, sustainable, and inclusive trade matters more than ever. And as the Minister responsible for international trade, for export promotion, small business, and economic development, this is where my work is focused. Excuse me. First, to deepen Canada's trade and investment relationships with partners around the world, to continuing to open new markets to Canadian businesses and exporters. And second, to support Canadian businesses to expand and to grow beyond Canada, contributing to our economic growth and creating good middle-class jobs here from coast to coast to coast. I'm pleased to share that we are making progress towards our trade and investment targets. We continue to build and safeguard an open and inclusive rules-based global trading system, and we're supporting Canadian exporters and innovators so that they can be successful in scaling up their operations into those international markets. We're seeing this work through the numbers. Trade with our closest trading partner, the United States, surpassed $1 trillion last year. And as many of you, if not all of you, had heard from the president just a couple of days ago, this is $2.5 billion a trade that goes between Canada and the United States. Since our government signed CETA with the European Union in 2015, our trade has increased by almost 53% from pre-CETA levels. And with the comprehensive and progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, our trade has grown more than 10% since the inception of that agreement. Prime Minister Trudeau welcomed President Biden to Ottawa for a very productive two-day discussion last week. The United States and Canada have a long-standing trading relationship. They are our ally, and the president reaffirmed the closeness of this relationship. We're working together towards a shared vision for a more competitive, inclusive, and greener North America. Together, we're building our economic resilience. Together, we're ensuring that trade benefits everyone, including our workers, our small and medium-sized businesses, those that have traditionally been underrepresented in our economies. And together, we're confronting the challenges of climate change. You heard the president say that by working together, we will build the green economy. There are enormous opportunities for Canada and the United States to work even closer together, creating good paying jobs on both sides of the border. Canada and the US have done throughout history, taken on big challenges, and we are doing that again. Canada and the US are launching an energy transformation task force to accelerate our work together over the next year across the spectrum of the clean economy. We'll focus on promoting trade in clean goods, including clean steel and aluminum, and continue to collaborate on renewable energy, electric vehicle supply chains, and the critical minerals value chains. That means good opportunities in those value chains for Canadian businesses, including small and medium-sized businesses, that will create good opportunities for people to thrive and to have great careers. Semiconductors are enabling advances in clean energy, communication, computing, and more. Canada has a vital role to play in the North American semiconductor ecosystem. Because of the close partnership between Canada and the U.S., last year the U.S. announced a $250 million investment in U.S. dollars of the Defense Production Act for Canadian and U.S. companies to mine and process critical minerals for electric vehicles and for stationary storage batteries. Just a couple of days ago on this visit, the United States announced an additional $50 million U.S. dollars in the Defense Production Act to fund U.S. and Canadian companies for advanced packaging for semiconductors and printed circuit boards. Why is this good? It's good because for Canadian companies to work alongside American companies in this important value chain in critical sectors in this green economy will mean growth for our Canadian businesses, including our small and medium-sized businesses. And with a relationship as large as the one that we have with the United States, of course, we have issues that we are going to have to work on together, like softwood lumber. Now, in the fifth round of the dispute, unfair U.S. duties are causing harm to Canadian industry and the communities who rely on it, as well as on U.S. consumers. I raised this directly with the President of the United States and the need for a negotiated solution. Now more than ever, it's critical that we grow our trade and strengthen our supply chains with our partners who are our friends. And this is not just our CUSMA partners, but also our partners in the Indo-Pacific. The Indo-Pacific region is one of the fastest growing regions in the world. By 2030, it's going to be home to 2/3 of the global middle class. By 2040, the region will account for more than half of the global economy. It will represent significant opportunities for years to come. In the last year, I've visited the Indo-Pacific 13 times, most recently last month, where I brought over 170 companies to Singapore on a Team Canada trade mission. And while we establish new partnerships and opportunities across the Pacific, we're also strengthening our relationships on the other coast, the Atlantic. You heard me say earlier that our trading relationship with the European Union has grown by nearly 53%, and this is really good for business. But the line that I would draw your attention to is the growth in trade in environmental goods and services, which have consistently seen a growth. And this really speaks to the importance in growing our green economy, not only with the United States, but with our partners in the European Union as well. And just 2 weeks ago, while I was on the other side of the Atlantic, I led a team trade team trade mission with women in tech businesses to the United Kingdom. And there we saw women entrepreneurs in tech who are leading the way and growing their opportunities in the United Kingdom. And here, of course, we are at the negotiating table working with the UK to further strengthen our trade and investment ties to that longstanding ally. And as we negotiate new agreements and modernize existing ones, Canada will lead with our values when it comes to our work around the world. And we expect companies around the world to do the same. And this will take me to Canada's mining industry, which is known for strong and sustainable and responsible mining. And Canada is one of the most sought after partners by countries around the world, including in the global south. Like many industries that recognize the shift to a more responsible, sustainable, and inclusive way of doing business, it's critical to building a competitive 21st century Canadian mining industry. And they are leading the way in adapting to these challenges. And they're working from a strong foundation. I want to give a shout out to the Canadian Mining Association and for initiatives like Towards Sustainable Mining, which is designed to ensure responsible and sustainable operations for Canadian mining companies around the world. Through their leadership, they have now worked with 12 other countries who will also adopt towards sustainable mining, so that as a global community, we are doing this together. It's a commitment here in Canada for these companies that will require mine sites to report on performance indicators related to biodiversity, to climate change, Indigenous and community relationships, health and safety, and more. It's the first standard to require independent external verifications. It aims to modernize and adapt to address new realities, challenges, and priorities like transparency and action on forced labor and advancing equity, diversity, and inclusion in the mining workforce. Let me just share a wonderful example of a company that I met most recently in Mexico, Canada's Torex Gold. It's the second largest gold producer operating in Mexico. They've received some of the highest scores for mining standards and community engagement, and they have an almost 50% female leadership. Leading with Canadian values, front and center, it works. Mining is also looking to expand. They're seeing an expanded interest and prioritization as businesses innovate and develop green solutions that will accelerate the transition to net zero. And for these to become a reality, critical minerals are going to be key building blocks for the green and digital economy of the future. And here in Canada, we're blessed with an abundant supply, and they're essential to lowering emissions. They're key to electric vehicles and advanced batteries, for security and tech manufacturing, and for semiconductors. And in short, they're the basic elements of everyday life. It's why our government developed a critical minerals list and a critical mineral strategy backed by $4 billion for the 31 minerals considered essential for the success of Canada to be a global mining leader. Canada is not only producing these minerals, but we are setting our country up to be the global leader, to be the supplier of choice. We don't want to just produce them here. We want to build out the entire value chain here at home, grow our businesses, particularly our small and medium-sized businesses, every step of the way. It means doing the processing here in Canada, doing the refining here in Canada, and further downstream, doing the advanced component manufacturing, all here in Canada. I know all of us here today are thinking about what the future looks like. For Canada, our future is one where the mining and mineral processing industries can grow and thrive in a responsible, sustainable, inclusive, and environmentally friendly way. It's a future where we are united in our goals, with Canada meeting the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and net zero emissions by 2050. It's a future that is healthier for generations to come, more accessible for all, and keeps us even more connected. I know that future isn't far off, especially when Canada works with mining industry, our provincial and territorial partners, Indigenous partners, in pursuit of making this reality. And before I cough, I'm just going to finish this last sentence. I thought I was going to make it. So, be it here, at home, or abroad, we will continue to ensure that good jobs, fair agreements, progressive approaches that benefit Canadians and our economy will be the work that we're focused on doing. And I look forward to talking about the progress that we've made. And I'm happy to take your questions, Madam Chair. And I apologize for those brief interludes of cough and sneeze.
Thank you very much, Minister. We appreciate the fact that as much as we were looking to have you in person, We do appreciate the fact that you decided to keep the germs in your office and talk to us through Zoom so the rest of us don't end up with another cold or something. Mr. Seaback for 6 minutes, please.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, you talked about support with the United States. You talked about trade with the United States. You also talked about, and this is what you just said, you want to lead with our values and expect companies around the world to do so. You're aware that in USMCA or CUSMA, Canada is not supposed to allow for the importation of goods made with or suspected to be made of slave labor?
I understand our obligations fully in CUSMA. Thanks.
And last time you were here at committee, I asked you a series of questions. And in one of those questions, I asked you whether or not the Government of Canada had seized any goods suspected of being made with forced labor from the Xinjiang region of China. And you said, I believe that there are, which is interesting because I did an order paper question. And in that order paper question, it came back that absolutely no goods were seized that were made or suspected to be with forced labor. Were you misinformed when you gave that information to the committee, or did you misspeak?
To the member, I provided what I understood to be, to be the facts at that meeting. But let me say this: we take our obligations, particularly in our trade agreements, very seriously. I know there has been much work that has been done by this committee, but other committees that are looking at this very issue, and ensuring that there is no forced labor in our supply chains is something that we are absolutely committed to doing. We've updated our responsible business conduct requirements for companies. With respect to goods from the Xinjiang region, we have a declaration that is very specific for companies operating in that region that the Trade Commissioner Service and EDC
actually
is
seized it, Minister. You haven't actually seized any goods, right? Are you disagreeing with the response from the order paper question? No goods have been seized at the Canadian border, correct or incorrect?
I'm going to have my officials answer that so that we can be very correct.
Well, are you disputing the accuracy of your government's response to an order paper question, Minister? Is that really the position you're taking now, to trying to get a government official to answer it? I have the written response.
Mr. Seaback,
I'm simply asking my officials to provide facts.
Has asked her officials to respond in order to ensure complete accuracy. So whichever one of the officials would like to answer that question, please. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. To the best of my knowledge, we seized one shipment, but that was released. So it is no longer seized. So
that would be zero.
That would be zero at the end of that process.
That's great. Thank you. Minister, are you aware that the United States has put together a list of companies that they know or suspect have been engaged in using forced labor in their supply chains? Are you aware of the existence of this list?
I'm aware that Canada and the United States and Mexico are meeting the obligations of our trade treaty in the USMCA and in CUSMA and in TMEC. And that is a commitment that our government has made and will deliver on. And look, the work that we are doing here is to help businesses develop a greater capacity to understand the vulnerabilities that they may have in their supply chain. And we are doing that work diligently with Canadian companies so that they can be more resilient, so that they will comply with what is required of them through our treaty. And that work is being done by our department. And we're going to keep doing this work because ensuring resilient supply chains, making sure that there is no forced labor into our supply chain is the absolute commitment, and we will comply with our trade agreements.
Okay, well, but you haven't complied, right? Because the United States, and this is an article...
Mr. Seaback, please direct the questions through the chair.
Yes, Madam Chair, through you. With all due respect, Minister, by October 1st of 2022, the United States has seized 2,600 seizures valued at over $1.3 billion of goods that are suspected to be made with forced labor. Over the same period of time, in fact, up to a few weeks ago when I got my order paper question, Canada has seized 0. How can you say that's complying? United States, 1.3 billion, Canada, 0. Clearly, you are not complying.
We take compliance with our international treaty extremely seriously. With respect to goods in the Xinjiang region, there is a process, a declaration that all companies who operate in the region must adhere to with the Trade Commissioner Service, with Export Development Canada. Companies are required to do that in order to have access to the Government of Canada services. We are also working to make sure that companies understand the risk of any forced labor in their supply chain so that they can be more resilient and that they will absolutely always be in compliance. We take compliance with our trade agreements extremely seriously. And on the Canadian side, just as the Americans and the Mexicans are doing, we're working collaboratively to make sure that the Trade Commission or the trade agreement between the three countries are working.
Well, Minister, it's not working. You've seized absolutely no goods. The U.S. has seized $1.3 billion worth of goods. I've got the list of companies the United States has banned. I'm happy to give it to the Minister so she can copy and paste it so that they could actually start enforcing it like the United States. Would the Minister like me to hand her a copy of this document so she can get the government to do the work?
Thank you very much, Mr. Seaback. I'm sorry, but your time is up. On to Mr. Virani, please. 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And Minister, thank you for joining us. I'm sorry for the illness that's befallen you. I hope you get better soon. Thank you to the officials for being here. Minister, I'm going to start with mining. I appreciate you're here on the estimates and on mining. But I thought it was quite telling with respect to the visit of President Biden last week and his speech in the House of Commons, and also the joint statement that was issued by the Prime Minister and President Biden, because it references mining in particular. And we heard this in the context of his speech as well in the Commons when he talked about the critical mineral sector in particular. And I'm just reading from some of that joint communique, but it specifically says, Canada and the United States will work together to create a strong, environmentally responsible and resilient North American critical mineral supply chain, committed to identifying, securing, and developing critical minerals extraction, processing, manufacturing, and recycling opportunities in both countries to diversify supply chains. I know you've been working extensively on this issue, also with your trade counterpart, Trade Representative Tai. If you could just elaborate on the work you've been doing, but also the significance of this kind of statement coming from the U.S. President.
Thank you very much. It's very significant because both countries are committed to fighting climate change. Both countries are committed to an economy where the economy and the environment can go hand in hand. When we saw one of the deliverables that came out of this meeting, an additional $50 million in U.S. dollars committed to essentially building out the supply chain that includes U.S. dollars funding both U.S. and Canadian companies. So $50 million this time, $50 million this time, and the number I said a little earlier, $250 million last year. I mean, this is incredibly significant. We, on our side, of course, is going to support that through the Strategic Innovation Fund. So making sure that Canadian companies in this important value chain and supply chain, that they are included as part of this value chain with our largest trading partner. That means creating jobs. That means creating jobs in the clean economy, creating a task force over the next year that's going to focus on the clean economy, and those jobs and those entrepreneurs and those businesses that are in Canada through this supply chain is very, very important. And at the end of the day, this is about fighting climate change. It's about Canadian innovations and American innovations. This is about making the right investments so that we are growing the green economy, because we believe that we should be able to do that together.
Thank you very much, Minister. And we have in the room with us Sarah Wilshaw, the Chief Trade Commissioner for the TCS service here in Canada and abroad. And I wanted to pivot my next question to what the TCS does. When we talked about the mining sector, we talked about responsible mining and standards that are invoked. And I know with the responsible business conduct strategy that was launched last April, in April of 2022, we took some very strong steps with respect to the incredible service provided by the trade commissioners, but we attached the notion of an attestation such that if you want to avail yourself of trade commissioner services, if you're doing mining abroad in any of the various continents around the world, you need to attest that you will abide by the responsible business conduct strategy and the standards that we would seek to uphold. Can you elaborate a bit for the committee about how that came to pass as the policy of the Government of Canada and how it dovetails with the important work that the TCS is doing by ensuring that an attestation is required before you avail yourself of the TCS services? Minister?
Yes, I appreciate this. Because the Trade Commissioner, Chief Trade Commissioner is there, would she mind taking this mostly because I have no voice?
Happy to. Thank you. I think what we were looking at in sort of strengthening the responsible business conduct strategy that was reviewed and renewed in 2022. This is, I think, the third or fourth iteration of that strategy. I think we were looking for ways in which we could have a closer look at what companies are that we're engaging with overseas are doing, and getting them to be better informed about the kinds of risks that are out there and the kinds of services that we can help them with in order to mitigate those risks, including this integrity declaration for the Xinjiang region in particular, but there's also just another integrity declaration to receive our services. This states that they understand the expectations of the government when it comes to their operations abroad and where they can get help and information about how to comply with those expectations. So that's the genesis of that.
Thank you, Ms. Wilshaw. And Minister, if you had maybe perhaps just 20 seconds, I know that we've taken great strides with respect to trade agreements in recent memory to ensure environmental and human rights standards are entrenched in those trade agreements. CUSMA comes to mind in particular. With respect to the trade agreements you are working on now with ASEAN, Indonesia, India, the UK, are you working similarly to entrench environmental and human rights standards into those agreements, Minister?
A brief answer, please, Minister.
Yes.
Okay, that's very
That was
brief.
brief.
So, and you have 10 seconds remaining when you can't do much with that. On to Mr. Savard Tremblay for 6 minutes.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Minister, for coming today, and thank you to her team as well. Minister, Invest in Canada wants to focus its efforts in the electric battery supply chain. That's what I read, and I was a little surprised to see members of the government applaud Mr. Biden last Friday when he said that he would be including all the North American supply chain in his Inflation Reduction Act. So I wanted to ask you, are you aware of the fact that he wants to be able to include all their batteries on American soil, and how will you counteract the effect of his actions?
Thank you to the member for that question. I might just take a step back. You'll remember that before the Inflation Reduction Act was passed, that Canada was not included at all in the credits for building electric vehicles and those batteries at all. And it was through extreme advocacy and hard work by Team Canada. Here, I give credit to Labour. I give credit to Canadian industry. I give credit to our colleagues, our parliamentary colleagues. We all work.
Pardonnez-moi, Madame la Ministre, mais là,
I'm sorry, Minister, but you're talking about the Build Back Better, and you're right about the credit regarding vehicles. So it was changed to North American. So I'm pleased with that. But now I'm talking about the Inflation Reduction Act and batteries. So it says only batteries built in the U.S.
What we're doing here, and I think you heard that through the president's visit, is that we are deepening and building out our supply chains. So what I mentioned earlier, the $250 million that the Americans invested through their Defense Production Act to include Canadian companies in the building out of critical minerals and that particular supply chain, as well as now another $50 million for semiconductors. This is deliberately including Canadians working together with Americans, because our economies, and indeed the work that we do together to innovate together, to build together, to sell together, has always benefited from this integrated relationship, and that continues.
Well, thank you, but I want to know if you're the 45X credit line in the Inflation Reduction Act.
You've seen our budget, our fall economic statement, that we intend to be competitive. I would like to remind the member that Volkswagen has just located their first ever plant in North America, in Canada. That is an indication that Canada is strong in the way in which we're going to build out the battery ecosystem. And we're going to, and I look forward to working with my colleague and all parliamentarians, as well as provinces, territories, Indigenous peoples, to make sure that we are building this ecosystem here in Canada, because it is going to not only be good for jobs and workers, but also good for the environment.
Bon, j'en déduis donc que
So I guess then that you weren't aware of its existence because you didn't respond to my question. It could have been a yes or a no. So let's change topics for now, and we'll get back to Invest in Canada. How will this work exactly? What will the team be made up of?
We have a terrific team at Invest in Canada with a very strong board. Their mandate is to support the government in working with companies and investors who may wish to look at Canada as a place to invest. And of course, the battery ecosystem is such an example. And they have been involved in all of the most recent transactions that my good colleague, Minister Champagne, has been announcing, attracting investments. I mean, today, Canada is number 2 on the battery ecosystem, where it was number 5. So this work and this investment and the work that Invest in Canada is doing is making progress, and will continue to do that work.
Une minute.
1 minute left, I see. For the business plan for 2021 to 22 and up to 26, talks about protecting the environment, and I'd like to know what the effect of protectionism is on Canada, in your opinion.
We need to keep fighting against protectionism. We saw during the pandemic that that many countries put up restrictions, and that impeded the flow of really important things at that time. And it's a lesson for us to continue to be diligent to work against protectionism. Open and free trade, particularly with our partners who we have agreements with, is what we continually must work to ensure that trade remains open and fair.
Alors, on se reprend au prochain.
Then I'll wait for my next turn. Thank you.
Jennings for 6 minutes, please.
Well, thank you, Minister, for being here, despite the being under the weather. Appreciate that. We're here to talk about Canadian mining companies abroad, and Canada has probably half the mining companies in the world are registered in Canada. I was recently had the opportunity to travel to South America with the Speaker and to Argentina and Chile, and it was clear how important Canadian mining companies are to our trade with those countries, particularly Chile, where Canada is the largest investor in that economy. And But with all those companies, over the years, we have had some very serious allegations made against Canadian companies, and that, I assume, led to the creation of the Canadian Ombudsperson for Responsible Enterprise. Now Sherry Meyerhofer is in that position, and she was before this committee in February. And it's clear that despite the complaints that we hear of some of these Canadian companies from other sources, she admitted that she had not heard any complaints at all from South America, from Central America, from Africa, despite when I talk to parliamentarians from Central America and South America, I hear those complaints. And when I asked her why she hasn't had any, she said it's because she doesn't have the power to compel witnesses and documents. And those indigenous communities and small communities have been told, don't bother complaining to CORE because you won't get anywhere. It's better to go through the courts or to the UN. And in fact, at that committee meeting, she said, having the power to compel witnesses and documents would provide my office with the powers needed to require company participation and void the need for human rights allegations to go to courts, a process that is less accessible and is expensive. I think we have some indication now that not all companies are going to engage. The only way we could move forward and do a true, thorough job would be to have those powers. And so I'd just like to ask you to comment on that, why the Commissioner why the Ombudsperson has not been given those powers.
You're on mute.
Apologies. I want to thank the honourable member for that important question. Let me begin by saying that in my earlier responses, where I talked about the importance of what mining will need to be for Canada in developing the green economy, ensuring that is done in a sustainable, but also in a way that leads with Canadian values like standing up for human rights and ensuring that communities are protected are also a part of that. We work closely, of course, with Sherry Meyerhofer, in her role as CORE. I'm pleased that she has set up the office and has started, and is doing that work, and that work is progressing well in terms of fulfilling her mandate and taking on cases. I also look with I'm paying particular attention to the work that is being done here at this committee and the many witnesses that are coming forward with respect to this issue. I'm also taking a look at the work that is being done at the FAA committee when they studied the Senate bill on S211. There's a lot of work that is being done, and I think what I can say is that we are obviously going to have to take into account these various issues as they are coming forward in the thinking of the future, because at the very heart of what we must do, Canadians must lead with the values that shore us up to be good, responsible corporate citizens. I expect that of Canadian companies. We've updated our rules to ensure that is the case. I do applaud the Mining Association for taking their leadership and, like I said, now working with 12 countries that have come on board on a way forward for the industry in terms of how they could do their work in a sustainable and responsible way. But I'm paying particular attention to this work that parliamentarians are doing, that civil society is doing, and we obviously will take these into account as we are thinking about the future of the work of the CORE.
Well, thanks. And yes, the Mining Association and in most, or at least many, Canadian companies are doing the right thing. I know I talked to Teck when I was in Chile. It has a big mine at Quebrada Blanca, developing, desalination so they wouldn't be tapping into the precious water resources there. But, your predecessor, the late Jim Carr, commissioned a report to find out how best to structure CORE, and that the McIsaac report said basically that ombudsperson should have the power to compel witnesses and documents, or its effectiveness may be compromised. And I'm just wondering why that wasn't followed.
A brief answer, Minister. You're on mute.
I'm looking forward to being in Chile in about 10 days from now, so that I will have an opportunity on a trade mission there. Suffice it to say, the many voices that are coming forward, and the information that is being done by parliamentarians and many others is certainly going to inform our thinking about the future of CORE.
Thank you very much. On to Mr. Carey for 5 minutes, please.
Chair, and thank the Minister for being here. Minister, you mentioned in your opening statement that we cannot take rules-based trade for granted, and your work is focused on this. Now, Minister, we support our extractive resource companies. A lot of discussion about the environment has occurred, but they've neglected to note the world-leading status of our Canadian firms around the world. And it made me think of a few companies in our domestic resource sector, specifically, as you mentioned, trade with the U.S. and our softwood lumber. Wood is basically the only 100% renewable building material. And I have in front of me a CBC article from March 12th, 2016, where Minister Freeland mentions quite clearly, she said, "We have a U.S. president announcing in the Rose Garden that he believes a deal in softwood lumber can and must be done. Trudeau and Obama instructed Freeland and her American counterpart to explore all options for solving the trade dispute and report back within 100 days. So, Minister, that was 100 days back in 2016. It's been 2,555 days since then. And given we just had the president here, I was wondering if you could please explain to Canadians why this is not a priority for you to fulfill a softwood lumber agreement.
Well, let me start there. That is not true. Of course it's a priority. Of course it's a priority for me to stand up for the forestry sector and for its workers. Of course I want to negotiate a deal with the United States, and I've said that at every opportunity, including I said that directly myself to the President of the United States when he was here on Friday when we had our meeting. The unjustified duties against Canadian lumber and softwood is unjustified. And we are working with the industry. I continue to work with the industry, and the argument that I have made is that American consumers, those that are building homes, who depend on our softwood lumber, also deserve to have more affordability in the way that those homes are built there. So, as I said earlier, with a relationship as large as the one with Canada and the U.S., we, of course, are making a tremendous amount of progress in many areas. This is an area around softwood lumber that we have to keep working on, and I'm committed to doing that.
Well, Madam Minister, I hate to contradict you, but basically the Prime Minister refused to raise the matter with President Biden. We know you explicitly told lumber CEOs that because the United States didn't want to speak to the issue on softwood, it would be left off the bilateral agenda during the recent visit. And I was told that the same CEOs gave you a suggestion on your request for a special lumber envoy to the United States going back late to 2021, 2022. Madam Minister, there is literally $8 billion worth of duty deposits from Canadian companies with the United States. We see Canadian companies, to get around this, are actually buying up American companies. And you're saying that this is a priority? 100 days to 2,555 days, Madam Minister. I have these letters from the softwood lumber companies. Can you please explain why the Prime Minister didn't raise it specifically with the President when he was here if it was such a great priority?
Well, since I was in that meeting, I can tell you the Prime Minister did raise it, and I followed that up.
Oh, well, he didn't say anything. But the lumber industries basically talked to you within the last month. I know you rushed a couple meetings with them. I have a letter in front of me from March 10th, and they actually asked you to come up with some solutions. And what they've done is they've come up with a name as far as solutions. You ask them for a name as a special emissary. Now, the name, I understand, is David McNaughton, as we know, former ambassador to the United States. Have you contacted Mr. McNaughton yet to move forward to see if he can help? Because obviously this government hasn't had any results for 2,555 days.
I don't do rush meetings. These are meetings that I have on a regular basis with the industry. I am very pleased to have a good working relationship with the industry, and on the heels of what was the presidential visit, just as the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, and I met with the Council of the terrific Canadians as part of Team Canada that helped us renegotiate NAFTA, I also met with the Canadian forestry sector. It is an honor to do so because I believe that in doing this work, I do it together with industry, and to ensure that we have to ensure that I hear directly from them is what I have done and continue to do. And make no mistake, it is a priority for this government. It is a priority that I continue to stand up for Canadian softwood lumber, the industry, as well as its workers. It's a priority that we push the United States to come to the negotiating table. We are ready. And of course, we will always look at
they gave you a name and you failed to
I'm
act.
sorry, both of you, the time is up. I'm on to Mr. Miao for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Minister and your official joining us today. And Minister, during the first meeting of the mining study, we heard testimony from the PDEC officials. Earlier this month, you also attended the annual PDEC convention. Known as one of the leading voices of the mineral exploration and development industry with thousands of members in Canada and around the world, why is it important for you to participate, and what are the outcomes of these meetings?
I want to thank the honourable member for that really important question. PDAC, of course, is Canada's preeminent conference for prospectors and developers, essentially the mining industry. It brings together the world. I understand this year's PDAC was among the largest that it's ever had, with somewhere, I think, about 40,000 participants, which really means that that the expertise that Canada has developed here in this sector that is leading in the world is why the world is comes to Canada and Toronto in particular for the PDAC convention. I had a really good opportunity to meet with many of Canada's mining companies of all sizes. And it really was to reaffirm, of course, and highlight their leadership and in the way that they pursue mining around the world in a sustainable way. I also had an opportunity to meet with a number of smaller companies who really are providing those solutions along that value chain, whether it is batteries and clean energy that is on mining sites, whether it is water treatment to remove or to use less water, whether it is treatment that ensures less, dust in the air and noise. So just a range of Canadian innovations and entrepreneurs and companies of a smaller size, but that go into those value chains. And I often sort of talk about my role as the Minister for both international trade and small business. It is this nexus that is so important, and in mining in particular, which enable Canadian businesses in that value chain to grow because of the work that they are doing, the innovations that they are pursuing, and to get into those mining chains of Canadian mining companies around the world, and certainly with our partners as well. So I would say a productive meeting, and again, the Mining Association of Canada is doing really terrific work in their leadership on towards sustainable mining.
Thank you. And as you know, critical minerals are extremely important in Canada. And knowing this, our government has a world-class critical mineral strategy. Can you expand on Canada's global leadership in relation to critical minerals and how it is linked to the global economic performance?
Indeed. we are working with our allies and our partners so that Canada and those who respect the rule of law are able to develop these important critical minerals, and that we can depend on each other as we are able to provide them and supply them throughout the trade supply chain. So we have a critical minerals arrangement, of course, with the United States. We have one with the European Union. We have one with Japan. We've just recently signed on the United Kingdom. This is about working in partnership with those partners and trading partners who respect the rule of law and who we can count on as we are developing this really important industry, so that we are supplying them in a with values that are important to Canada. That we are investing together, and that we are developing together in a sustainable and responsible way. And the final point I might make here is that given the critical minerals are so much in Canada's north, it's essential that we work side by side with Indigenous peoples of this country, so that we are doing this together, not only mining sustainably, but doing so in a way that has Indigenous people right at the very heart of this. My colleague, Minister Wilkinson, of course, is doing this in his regional tables with the sector, and so these are important commodities. It's also why we invested $4 billion for our first critical mineral strategy. And these are going to create thousands and thousands of good middle-class jobs across the country, and particularly in our rural communities and in our north.
Thank you very much. On to Mr. Savard-Tremblay for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your opinion, what will be the impact on international trade between Canadian businesses and Chinese businesses of foreign electoral interference, for example? Does that pose a risk to the markets, to confidence in the markets? Do you think it will have an impact?
Well, let me respond to that in two ways. Number one, the work that Mr. Johnson as a special rapporteur will do, we're looking forward to that, so that he can do his work as given to him through the terms of reference to ensure that that there is confidence in Canada's democratic institutions. So that's number one. Number two, our Indo-Pacific strategy lays out a very coherent coherency in terms of how we will work with China, particularly around trade. There will be opportunities where we will collaborate with China, like in the area of fighting climate change. Just in December in Montreal, we had a climate biodiversity conference that was a Chinese presidency, but it was done here in Montreal. And coming out of that, it demonstrates that we have to work as a global community, everyone, to fight climate change. But we're going to stand up for our values. We're going to stand up against issues, whether they be human rights or standing up for the rules-based trading system, and we are going to and we're going to do that. We've consistently done that, and that will change. That won't change, and we believe that just like you're seeing in the battery ecosystem, where Canada now is number 2 next to China, and we used to be number 5, that we can compete.
Alors, à 25, je sais pas.
I'm not too sure what I can ask you in 20 seconds, so I'll take it at the next round.
Very much. Mr. Cannings for 2.5 minutes, please.
Well, thank you. And Minister, I would just like to go on to one of the other things that NGOs and other people working in the human rights sphere here in Canada and around the world have been asking for, in terms of Canadian companies working abroad, is some due diligence legislation that would ask these companies to carry out due diligence exercises that to ensure that their operations or the operations that they their subsidiaries in other countries have been carrying out, make sure that they are not violating human rights, so that we can be sure that Canadian companies working abroad are working in the same way that they would be doing here in Canada and not damaging Canada's reputation abroad. So I'm just wondering if you could comment perhaps on, Peter Julian has Bill C-262, which lays this out in very clear terms, very simple bill. Just wondering if you could comment on whether you have considered this.
Well, thank you very much for this. I think that what you heard me say earlier is, and I'll repeat, it is really important that Canadian companies are operating to the standards, the responsible business conduct standards that we require of them here at home, and that they operate around the world as if they are operating here at home. Of course, there are many things that we ought to be looking at to make sure that that those obligations are strengthened, to ensure that that companies are able to perform to their fullest capability, sustainably, respecting human rights, that their ESG standards in their organization are considered of the various work, including due diligence. So we are taking a very close look at the work that is before parliamentarians. So what I can say to you is that I really think that this is work that we could be doing as a country, and we really are looking at the range of issues that are that are making its way through whether it's committees or through sort of civil society. So in order for us to meet that macro commitment, which is Canada operating in the world as global leaders in a sustainable, transparent, and good governance way.
Okay, thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
On to Mr. Baldinelli for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the Minister and officials for being with us today. I'm just going to build on some questions posed by my one colleague earlier, and just based on your comments, Minister, about building and safeguarding an open trading system. On October 28th, while speaking to this committee, you said you wanted our trade to have higher environmental and ethical standards. Your mandate letter of December 2021 contains 21 objectives. Point 13 and 14 kind of speak to this. 13 talks of working with the Minister of Labour to introduce legislation to eradicate forced labour. Point 14 speaks of ensuring Canadian companies and Crown corporations uphold the highest environmental and social standards. Minister, where does that legislation stand, and why do we hold foreign companies and governments such as China to a lesser environmental and ethical standard than our own? Why is that okay?
So I'm very pleased to be working with the Minister of Labour on legislation, our own legislation that will eradicate forced labor out of our supply chains. That work is ongoing and progressing. We are certainly supportive of some complementary work that is before the House at the moment in a private member's bill, and the work with respect to Canadian Crown corporations as well as the Canadian government to ensure that we are upholding the highest standards for companies. You are seeing in the work that.
But how about the actions of foreign
Please
governments and their actions?
Mr. Bond, please allow the Minister to finish her answer.
Just a final point on that. It's why we updated the responsible business conduct strategies there to work with companies, Canadian companies operating abroad, so that they can be more resilient, and Crown corporations, of course, are also doing this work.
Minister, it's been 18 months. Has that legislation been drafted? Has Cabinet been examining it? Draft legislation at all?
The Minister of Labour is certainly on top of this, and has been doing quite a bit of work on this front.
Well, but Minister, why can the U.S. take action in the Xinjiang region on forced labor, and we're incapable of taking such action?
We absolutely are taking action. There's a declaration that all Canadian companies must provide to the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service as well as to Export Development Canada in order to be provided services by Trade Commissioner Service. Every company that I talk to tell me about how valuable it is to be able to work with the Canadian company where they operate around the world. And this service is extremely important to Canadian companies. What we're doing is we are working with Canadian companies so that they are building out resilient supply chains so that they can eradicate, so that they can actually be more resilient in ensuring that their supply chains are clean.
I'll take that as being nothing. Minister, again, going back to your mandate letters, point 3 speaks to leading Canada's efforts to combat protectionism, unfair trade practices, and economic coercion around the world. Minister, nowhere in your mandate letter does it talk about the softwood lumber agreement with the United States and efforts by this Canadian government to resolve that. Do you not believe that after 8 years it should be resolved, and do you not believe it should have been included in your mandate letter?
I welcome everything in my mandate letter, and I'm so pleased to be able to work on behalf of Canadians and businesses and colleagues around the world to open up markets for Canadians. I won't repeat the numbers that I did earlier in my remarks about how well those relationships are taking place. Of course, softwood lumber is important. Of course, I place that as a priority. Of course, that is why I've been working with the industry. Of course, that's why I and the Prime Minister raised it with the President last week.
It's 8 years. No, simply put, Minister, if it's a priority, why 8 years? Again, to my colleague's comments earlier, the lumber sector, representing West Coast and East Coast nationally, have come together and asked for the appointment of joint emissaries, such as former Ambassador David McNaughton. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm happy to take any solutions and all solutions, particularly when they come from Canadian industry.
Will you implement?
And my commitment is very clear. We are going to work with the United States and with our sector to try to find a resolution. I mean, in a relationship that is $2.5 billion every single day, lots of things go right, but there are issues, and these issues those issues. We're going to have to keep working on them. We're going to have to be persistent on them, and that is my commitment to the sector.
Thank you very much, Minister. Minister, would you please mute yourself in between, in case you happen to sneeze? It's difficult for the translators. Ms. Dillon, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the Minister for being here today. Over the past few months, Minister Ng, you've led some women trade missions. Can you share some stories of success or some examples of women entrepreneurs who have benefited from participating in these women-led trade missions? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that answer. How did you know that? That's probably one of the favorite questions that I like getting here. The most recent trade mission I led that was a women-focused trade mission was Women in Technology. It was about 40 companies that we took to the United Kingdom. These are companies in the AI, cybersecurity space. These are companies that are providing renewable energy solutions. These are companies that are technology companies with, whether it's medical devices or solutions. Biomedical solutions. So just real dynamic Canadian companies. And we're very pleased to have led that mission to the United Kingdom so that they can pursue both investments and opportunities in that market. Just a couple of months ago, I took about 175 companies to Singapore. There were many women leaders and entrepreneurs there as well. And while on the ground, I had an opportunity to meet with some really terrific women entrepreneurs who are looking to expand and grow into Canada. We've done a whole series of women-led trade missions around the world. I mean, to India, to South Korea, to Taiwan, to Japan, and all of these trade missions have really one objective in mind, which is to support the growth of Canadian businesses led by women business leaders into these dynamic markets, and it's very much a part of Canada's first ever women's entrepreneurship strategy, which I lead today. That's about a $7 billion investment. And the return on that investment is $150 billion to the Canadian economy. And in the latest report that I received from the Women's Knowledge Hub, those numbers are moving. We are closing the gap for women entrepreneurs who want to become entrepreneurs in the first instance relative to their male counterparts. And we have seen an increase of women entrepreneurs in our country go from 15.6% to just under 18%. So this is progress that is being made, but it's progress because of deliberate investments. And for a minister like me that has an economic portfolio, I certainly can't do this work supporting women alone. $10 a day childcare is a game changer because it keeps women into the workforce and it keeps those women entrepreneurs continuing to grow their businesses. Paid parental leave, also a game changer to enable women-led businesses to contribute to the Canadian economy and to grow the Canadian economy. I don't want to leave $150 billion on the table, and we're going to continue to work with Canadian women leaders, business owners, and entrepreneurs to do this work.
Thank you, Minister Ng. And over the next few months and years, how do you see this evolving? How do you see these trade missions making any further impacts and changes?
Well, what I'm really pleased about is, it's $150 billion to the Canadian economy by doing one thing, which is to add women into our economy. Globally, I tell my colleagues around the world, it's $12 trillion to the global economy if we do this together. So the global trade and gender arrangement is something that Canada is a part of. We're there with countries like Mexico. We're there with countries like New Zealand, Chile, and a number of others. I continue to work around the globe to create a greater coalition of governments where we don't grow the business. What we do is we create the right conditions, so that businesses can operate and women-owned businesses can operate in a way that will support their growth. So that is the work that we are doing, and we will continue to do.
Thank you, Minister Ng. And the Indo-Pacific region is fast-growing in importance, and we know it has significant economic impact and is a major driver of growth and trade, especially when it comes to Canada. Could you tell us a little bit during the Indo-Pacific strategy that Canada announced, what this means specifically when it comes to mining, and if you can expect it will grow our economy in the future? If you can say a few words about that. Thank you.
Indeed.
Briefly, Minister, please. You have 30 seconds.
Yeah. Mining is a important sector, and Canadian mining around the world, including in the Indo-Pacific. I had some really terrific meetings with mining companies that are looking to grow, particularly in the Indo-Pacific, and that work will continue.
Thank you very much, Minister. Okay, I will now suspend for a few seconds while we switch the panels and go on to consideration of the main estimates. So I'll suspend for a moment. Thank you to the department officials for being here as well.
Madam Chair, I'm just going to run really quickly to the washroom.
4, the committee is considering the main estimates 23-24. Vote 1 under the Canadian Commercial Corporation and Vote 1 under Invest in Canada Hub. Referred to the committee on Wednesday, February 15, 2023. For the second panel, we have again the Honourable Minister Ng, Minister of International Trade, Export Promotion, Small Business and Economic Development. And from the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development, we have Rob Stewart, Deputy Minister, International Trade, and Nick Ouellette, Assistant Deputy Minister and Chief Financial Officer, Corporate Planning, Finance and Information Technology, and Annie Boyer, Director General and Deputy Chief Financial Officer, Financial Planning and Management. And from the Department of Industry, again, we have Charles Vincent, Assistant Deputy Minister, Small Business and Marketplace Services. The Minister made her opening remarks in her first panel, and we will go immediately into questions from the members. Mr. Martel, for 6 minutes, please.
Oui. Alors moi,
I have a question about Invest in Canada. It is to promote, among other things, the production of critical minerals for batteries, except that it's not necessarily on the list of minerals.
Sorry, I can't hear.
Madam Chair, something's going on.
OK.
Hello?
Alors, vous m'enlevez.
Okay, I can hear.
Je recommence?
Shall I start over? Yes.
Mind starting over. I couldn't hear it.
Sorry about that, Minister. So we've asked Mr. Martel to start his 6 minutes again.
OK, merci.
Thank you very much. My question is about Invest in Canada. Will we be promoting essential minerals for the production of batteries that aren't included on the list of critical minerals? For example, Canadian phosphate. It's much better quality than the sedimentary phosphate that is already on the market.
To my honourable member, that's a very good question, which I don't have an answer to. So perhaps if my departmental officials do, I'm happy for them to answer. But if not, I can also take it back and return to you with an answer because I just don't have an answer.
Do any of the officials want to attempt to answer that question? Yes. Mr. Stewart, please go ahead.
Okay, merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question. Invest in Canada deals with investments in Canada to develop our industries. Exports of phosphate and other minerals falls under other organizations. Minister, several times I have asked about adding phosphate to the list of critical minerals. And each time I'm told that that list is renewed every 3 years. But we had experts here who said that 3 years is too long a time and that members of Parliament can put pressure on to speed things up. But there has been no answer on this. Why are you not updating that list?
Merci for the.
Thank you for the question.
So, as you know, or maybe I'll just share that that the development of the list for critical minerals rests with my colleague, the minister responsible for natural resources. It's the first I've heard from you as my colleague, and of course, critical minerals are very important, as you've heard, and as you are also stating. So I'm happy to take that, to take that input as you've just shared with me, but to my colleague who has the responsibility for that list.
Anyway, j'aimerais que vous vérifiez.
Well, I would like you to check that because we have already asked, actually, your office, And now I'd like to come back to something else, and that's about free trade agreements. Under C-282, or with that in place, do you think it will make negotiations difficult when it comes to negotiating other free trade deals?
Well, what I've said and what our government has been clear about is that we will not be providing access to supply managed sectors in any future free trade agreements. That is a commitment that this government has made to the supply managed sector in Canada, and I don't know if the member is saying to me that that they're no longer supporting 282, because you have been supporting 282 as as the rest of us.
Well, that's not really what I was trying to say. What I want to know is if it means that future free trade agreement negotiations whether this will make future trade agreements more difficult. I didn't say whether we were supporting it or not.
Well, the Canadian team of trade negotiators are excellent. They are among the best in the world. And I think the proof of that is the many agreements that our negotiators have done. We continue to be at trade negotiations around the world, and I believe that we are able to negotiate strong agreements that provide good market access for our Canadian exporters, while at the same time protecting supply management.
Madame la Ministre.
Minister, in various free trade agreements, we've seen that standard reciprocity is not the same when we're receiving as opposed to exporting products. Have you ever discussed that? There's some products that come in from Europe and that come in here, but some of these products, when we export them, are blocked in the receiving country.
What I would say is that it's really important that we do everything we can to help our Canadian exporters get into those markets where we've negotiated free trade agreements. And, Mr. Martel, you were with me when we were in Singapore and we did that meeting with the CPTPP partners, and you saw around the table how each of the partners in the agreements talk about how the agreement is doing and the report of the committees. Those committees include things that are working well, but they also include things where we need to keep doing the work. So the positive thing is that as we negotiate agreements, we also have mechanisms in there to make sure that these agreements are working to the benefit of our exporters, of Canadian exporters getting into those markets. And that is work that we need to always pay particular attention to keep doing, so that Canadians have access to those markets when we negotiate them in agreements. So it's a work that has to continue to be pursued with good diligence.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Martel, your time is up. On to Mr. Arya, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, while discussing about Canadian Commercial Corporation and Invest in Canada, I would have preferred if the chief executive officers of these organizations were here so that we could have asked them some operational details. However, with the senior officials of both international trade and from Industry Canada here, maybe I can ask them certain questions. One is that Canadian Commercial Corporation, it has been in existence since 1946, and it's a prime actor in the defense production sharing agreement that Canada and US has got since almost since 1950 or 1956. However, when they look at the operations and the results of CCC, in 2021, they signed value of the contract signed is just 1.35 billion. Compared to Canadian exports in 2022 of 777 billion, this is just a rounding error, 1.35 billion. And in that, even with that small number, the international prime contractor, where CCC is supposed to help Canadian companies get export commitments, orders from countries which are not big, where CCC will become the exporter as far as on government-to-government contracts. There, the amount is just $474 million in last year. It's so low. Even the plans, future plans, if we look at it, I think the value of contracts signed from 1.35 billion in 2021, their plans are to sign just around 1.49 billion in 2025-26. Why this is so unambitious? We have signed agreements with, we have got 15 free trade agreements with around 51 countries. Why CCC is so unambitious in assisting Canadian exporters?
I want to thank my colleague for that very good question. I would say that 1.3 billion for 400 SMEs, that is the large part of CCC's clients. These companies normally would not be able to get into those particular procurements. The fact that CCC is able to, through their contracting, government to government, has created an opportunity for, over $1 billion worth of transaction for over 400 SMEs in the country, and that is terrific. Now, the CCC is not the only tool that we have in our toolbox. We have other toolboxes as well to help Canadian exporters grow. But when I think about the work that CCC has done, helping Canadian companies to build an airport, for example, in one of the CARICOM countries, providing and supplying, potash to another country, with a significant order of magnitude, helping a Canadian company to sell helicopters. I just met with the Aerospace Association not that long ago, and they said how important it is to have this vehicle to be able to do government contracts in markets where they would not necessarily be able to get in, to make those exports. To customers. So I always say, and my colleague will know this phrase very well because it comes from our Prime Minister, better is always possible. So we will continue to work with the CCC, but I am very pleased with the work that they are doing, whether it is through procurement facilitation for defense procurement with the United States, or with the government-to-government contracts to build airports, to sell helicopters, to export potash, to sell ventilators during the time, medical devices. That's the work that the CCC is doing. And like I said, the lion's share of their clients are Canadian small and medium-sized businesses who would not be able to get into those contracts or those markets if it were not for CCC.
Madam Chair, if Mr. Stewart would like to add anything to that, I'm interested to hear.
Mr. Stewart?
I would just add to the Minister's answer that one has to think about this in a portfolio context, and the vast majority of our support for trade from the Crown corporations goes through export development, who financed and insured $111 billion of exports.
Mr. Stewart, I got limited time, so let me go back to what Minister said. I know that CCC is there to help companies export various things to many countries. She gave the example of the Dominican Republic, another specific example. But the entire contracts, the government-to-government contracts for SMEs during the last year was just $50 million compared to the exports of $777 billion. $50 million government-to-government contracts for small and medium-sized industries is not even the rounding error, is negligible, nothing. And I know that they have got big numbers in terms of how many SMEs they helped, but they also help. I mean, definition of SME here is less than 500 employees.
If I could introduce, Mr. Arya, if you would like some sort of an answer, you have to give them a few minutes, or well, they won't have it. They'll have 6 seconds left.
I give up.
Mr. Stewart, have you got a 6-second answer? No. All right. Then we'll just have to leave it at that. Mr. Savard-Tremblay, for 6 minutes, please.
Est-ce que je peux prendre les 6?
Can I take my colleague 6 seconds as well? Minister, let's link up the topics from both hours. because there is financial support, budgetary support for mining. And you said earlier that human rights had to be respected, and that includes social rights, environmental rights, etc. So I'd like to talk to you about Canadian mining companies. Can you tell us how one can legally be a Canadian mining company? What are the legal requirements?
Thank you for that question. I'm afraid that that question and that specificity I don't know the answer to, so I'm going to ask my officials if they might have an answer.
They're indicating they don't have an answer either. Possibly you could get an answer back to the member in writing or to the clerk,
Donc,
so that everyone would have the answer.
juste pour être bien certain.
Okay, just to be sure, so you can't confirm that all you have to do is have a postal box number in Canada to be a mining company?
So on that issue, I am aware of that. That's not acceptable. So we're going to look into that. Having a postal box and not operating in Canada is not a Canadian company. So if that was the question, that's your answer.
Bon, parfait. Ben...
Perfect. Thank you. That's the first time I've heard a commitment to tackle this issue, because it's so important, and Canadian legislation is so complacent in this. There are all kinds of support provided, fiscal support, legislative support, and this can be for Canadian mining companies that aren't actually Canadian. So I would ask you to please let the committee know about any future steps that are taken in tightening up the legal obligations for these mining companies. Are you willing to do that?
This issue has come onto my attention, so we are going to for sure look at it. But you heard my response earlier. Having just a postal box and pretending that you're a Canadian company does not make you a Canadian company, and therefore available to access all of the range of services that the Canadian government provides to all these wonderful Canadian entrepreneurs and businesses that are working so hard to grow our economies and to create jobs in Canada.
Parfait.
Thank you very much. I look forward then to hearing the changes that will come about in this area. Now, with respect to monitoring of behaviors of Canadian mining companies abroad, I'd like to ask you this. We heard from the EDC here in our study, during our study, and they didn't seem to say that there was any real way to verify accountability on the part of these mining companies. Would you also be willing to tighten up the monitoring of this? So a dollar invested, any dollar invested abroad should require monitoring of these companies.
I'm trying to think how to respond to this. Canadian companies that operate abroad have an entire regime of obligations, legal obligations and otherwise, where they operate, but they certainly have them as Canadian companies as well. And we expect Canadian companies to, when they're operating here and abroad, to adhere to all of that. Including responsible business conduct in some sectors like mining that require a duty of care and standard. So I think my answer to you is that I expect Canadian companies to work with to comply with the law.
Mais vous attendez à...
You expect that, yes, but is there any follow-up, any monitoring of that? Are there any tools in place to do that? Inspectors, organizations that are responsible to monitor these companies?
So if I'm a digital company operating in another part of the world or in Canada, is the government of Canada supposed to monitor them? Is that what you're asking?
Oui, ben, en fait...
Well, yes, because you said you expect Canadian laws to be complied with. But beyond your expectations, and implementing that, there can be a huge gap at times.
Well, I think that the legal regime of Canadian laws for Canadian companies and the range of reporting and due diligences that are required, and their responsibility to meet those requirements is the companies to ensure that they do, and that there are mechanisms. Regular mechanisms to ensure that companies are meeting their legal obligations.
Mais, Madame la Ministre,
Minister, when legislation is adopted, you just don't say it's up to the criminals to comply with it.
Minister, a brief answer if possible.
Well, I don't consider Canadian companies criminals.
ce n'est pas ce que...
That's not what I was saying. What I wanted to say is that when there's legislation, there has to be follow-up. Well, perhaps I could take the 6 seconds from opposite. I just want to make sure I was clear. I do need to clarify that I wasn't accusing Canadian companies of being criminals. I was just saying that when there is legislation, it is up to the government to make sure that that legislation is applied. They can't just expect people to comply with it.
Thank you very
Agreed.
much. Mr. Cannings,
Agreed.
please.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to talk about, we've had a study that we've been looking at here in this committee on the Inflation Reduction Act and its impact on Canadian companies and Canadian trade and investments with the United States. I was talking to a constituent of mine who was involved in a small business, and they have a patented process that takes forest waste and turns it into cleaner fuels, to renewable renewable diesel, high carbon content biochar, etc. They're opening a plant here in Canada. Their investments, it's a private company, and the investors in the company are Bloomberg. It's a big American company. And Bloomberg says, we really love your technology. They want to spread across Canada, open new plants across Canada, but Bloomberg saying, we can't afford to do that with all this money from the IRA in the United States. We want you to open up plants in the United States. And I'm just wondering if you can comment, is there any good news coming for a company that works in this space to help combat this lure to move across the border into the United States because of the IRA, and say, we will support these companies here in Canada?
You're on mute, Minister.
Thank you very much. That is such an important question. Your question is actually at the very heart of my role as the Small Business Minister and the International Trade Minister, and what you've seen our government do over the last number of years is to support those most innovative companies, particularly those that are developing these technologies or these solutions, these innovative solutions, that have strong IP and so forth, to grow and to create the necessary support so that they are growing in Canada and creating those jobs, and doing so, of course, with international partners. And yes, there are investments that come in to support that. The Strategic Innovation Fund, the range of supports. In the, I apologize, I don't remember the name right off the top, but the finance minister announced it along with the Minister of Innovation not that long ago in the last, in the fall economic statement or in the budget, around a clean tech fund that really is to support their growth, particularly in getting that access to capital in Canada. But a lot of companies also make the choice to be here because of our strong education system, the strong social supports that are here, the strong support for talent and skills that are here in Canada. We know that there is work and continues work to be done to ensure that we are growing these Canadian companies to become the next Canadian giants. But that's very much, whether it's the superclusters or the work that the various funds that we have put out to incentivize for that growth. growth
Minister,
is very much so.
Sorry to interrupt, but will there be something either in the budget or in the near future that will change this dynamic, so this company can build out its plants across Canada and not be forced by its investors who just see the obvious advantage of taking the subsidies in the United States and building plants there instead? Will there be something different there? I have, well, I'll just leave it at that, and hopefully I'll have time for another question after this.
So I'm looking forward to the budget tomorrow, and the finance minister and I had talked about a budget ago about the importance of reciprocal, procurement between both countries. So we buy from you as much as you buy from us. And that principle of being able to support our Canadian companies to compete and grow in Canada is very, very much something I'm seized with. It's the Canada Growth Fund, by the way, which will foster that kind of growth. So we do want to make sure that we're supporting these very Canadian companies so that they continue to build their operations here. But I believe that in the resilience of the supply chain work that we talked about earlier, and certainly between Canada and the U.S., that we're going to need to be doing this work together. But make no mistake, fostering Canadian companies to grow and scale as Canadian companies is at the very heart of what I spend every single day thinking and working on.
You have 58 seconds remaining, Mr. Cannings.
Okay, thanks. I'll just move on to a similar situation in the city of Trail in my riding. There's a big lead zinc smelter, but there's a cluster of companies around that smelter that specialize in battery recycling because the smelter's there. And one of them is it's probably the biggest recycler of lead acid batteries, the batteries you find in regular cars and trucks in Western North America. Another one is the world leader in lithium battery recycling. The one that does the lithium battery recycling was just bought out by an American company because they saw the advantage in getting this technology and getting these processes. They'll be staying in Trail, but that company will be taking that process and building plants in the United States. It's the same question. These companies are looking for Canadian investments, help from the Canadian government, and they don't seem to be getting it. And I'm just wondering, where is the disconnect?
I'm sorry, Mr. Cannings. You're about 30 seconds over, and we really don't have time for an answer, but I think you made your point to the minister. Mr. Seaback, for 5 minutes, please.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I want to get back to softwood lumber. I think you said today it's a priority for you to resolve the softwood lumber dispute. Is that correct, Minister?
You're on.
It has always been my priority, yes.
So my understanding is that in January of 2022, softwood lumber industry asked you to appoint a special envoy or a lead negotiator. This was in January of 2022. It's been 15 months since then. Have you appointed a lead negotiator or a special envoy to resolve this very important dispute?
I continue to have conversations and discussions with the industry, and I'm looking forward to keep working with them on a solution for softwood.
It's not a trick question. Have you appointed an envoy or a lead negotiator?
I'm looking forward to working with the industry, and I'll continue to do so.
Okay, please make your questions through the chair.
Well, Madam Chair, it's not a difficult question. I'm asking if you've appointed an envoy or a lead negotiator. It's a simple yes or no.
I'm going to keep working with the industry. This work continues.
That's an incredible evasion of responsibility by a minister to answer a question, Madam Chair. $8 billion in duties have been collected since then. Under the last settlement, $6 billion would be coming to Canadian companies. The market share has gone from 34% to 25%. I think you and I have a different definition of making something a priority for a resolution. Have you spoken to your U.S. counterparts about appointing a special envoy or lead negotiators to resolve this dispute?
I speak to my U.S. counterpart all the time about Canadian trade.
Have you spoken to them about appointing a special envoy or a lead negotiator, one from Canada, one from the United States?
I think I said this earlier, in the area of Canada-U.S. trade. We're exceptionally proud that 2.5 billion go across the border every day. And we're really pleased that we renegotiated CUSMA to ensure that there are mechanisms in there to allow for both sides to also deal with issues that arise from time to time. Softwood, of course, is a really important issue. It's really important to the Canadian economy. There are many, many workers in this sector that we care deeply about. It is an issue
Minister,
that I'll keep working on.
Minister, I'm finding this incredibly, Madam Chair, incredibly insulting to this committee. I've now asked you 2 direct questions, which are simple. They require a yes or a no answer, and you're refusing to answer them. I'm going to ask it again. Have you discussed with your U.S. counterparts appointing a special envoy or a lead negotiator like the softwood industry in Canada asked you to do 15 months ago?
I've talked to the United States Trade Representative about softwood lumber. I've talked to the President about softwood lumber. I've talked to other interlocutors. I think I was speaking to a congressperson the other day about Canadian softwood lumber and the issue with the Americans. So the answer is yes, I talk to the Americans about softwood lumber at every opportunity I have.
That actually wasn't the question. I didn't ask you if you spoke to them. I assume you've spoken to them in 8 years. Otherwise, it's a complete dereliction of your responsibility. My question was, have you raised the issue of special envoys with the United States? Yes or no?
Madam Speaker, on a point of order.
The minister has attempted to answer the question several times. No. And I suggest that you move on to another question.
With all due respect, Madam Chair, she has not answered the question. I have asked her if she spoke about a specific issue, and she has not answered that question. And I'm entitled to keep asking that question, and I'm going to keep asking that question. Did you speak to the U.S., your United States counterpart, about appointing a special envoy as requested by the softwood lumber industry in Canada?
Madam Chair, just on a point of order, I believe an issue has arose. I believe you just made a ruling, and now we have the member not following the ruling.
Okay, you have 55 seconds remaining.
Did you discuss the appointment of a special envoy with the United States as requested by the softwood lumber industry in Canada? Yes or no? It's not a trick question.
I believe you've asked that question several times already, Mr. Seaback. I suggest you move on to another question.
Did you or did you not discuss appointing a special envoy or a lead negotiator with your U.S. counterparts over the last 15 months as requested by the Canadian softwood industry?
Thank you, Mr. Seaback. Your time is up. On to Mr. Barani, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Minister, I'd like to take you to the auto industry. We know that, and you referenced this, I think, a little bit earlier, perhaps in the previous hour, that there have been historic investments in the auto industry in the last approximately 2 years, to the tune of about $17 billion in entities like Stellantis, Toyota. Volkswagen has now initiated its first ever plant outside of Germany in North America, in Ontario, for electric vehicles. Even one in Oshawa, which is Mr. Kerry's own local riding. The GM plant is seeing a $2 billion investment. Can you talk about the fact about the critical mineral strategy and the communique statement made by the Prime Minister and President Biden just on Friday, and how that connects to the attractiveness of the Canadian auto sector as a place for electric vehicle investments? Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much. Canada and the U.S. have been making automobiles together for 100 years. And 50 years of that through very deliberate integration of our supply chains. I think the number is something like a vehicle moves across our borders about 7 times before it's finally assembled. But today we are at a point in time where the vehicle of the future is going to be different, and the vehicle of the future, for certain, is going to be many vehicles powered by batteries. The investments that we are seeing today demonstrates and reaffirms this important relationship and trading relationship for this very, very important sector that employs hundreds of thousands of Canadians across. I mean, certainly here in Ontario, where both you and I represent, but indeed the echo effect of that is across the country. And when you look at critical minerals today, those minerals that will be mined sustainably will come from our far north. It's going to come from our rural communities. We are investing to make sure that they have processing capability here in Canada. We are investing so that the downstream value, the downstream manufacturing, it can also be here in Canada. We're doing this with the United States because complementary to that, things like chips and semiconductors that go into vehicles is something that we're working with the United States on. And as I said earlier, to see $250 million in the first instance invested by the United States in US dollars for Canadian and American companies through the Defense Procurement Act, and then now another $50 million US for that investment. It is both countries. And then, of course, in Canada here through $250 million through the Strategic Innovation Fund. This is both countries investing and creating the environment for that innovation to occur, for the manufacturing investments to come in, for investments in the battery ecosystem, and for big and for organizations like Volkswagen, which for the first time is locating here in North America and in Canada. This is really, really important work, and work that I might say that a acknowledgement and a leadership on how we tackle climate change is at the very, very core of this. We are able to invest today, and the United States are investing in this, and we're investing in this together precisely because we are able to do that.
Thank you, Minister. Just in terms of sort of other regions of the country, I know there's another aspect of the joint communique that talks about cooperation on civil nuclear and nuclear fuel, and it dovetails exactly with what you were talking about things like uranium and low-enriched uranium, which is sourced in Saskatchewan. It's one of the principal locations on the planet. Can you talk a bit about how that helps you, how agreements such as this on the responsible use of small modular reactors and accessing low-enriched uranium, including in Saskatchewan, how that helps you fulfill the part of your mandate letter that talks about ensuring we have a clean energy grid, not just for Canada, but for North America, and also that we are helping build jobs in the sustainable clean tech sector?
Absolutely, and again, it goes to the heart of my mandate and my job, which is to grow out Canadian innovations and enterprises into the international marketplace through our trading partners, in this case, the United States, which is so important. It's also why we created why we are going to catalyze this clean energy and to create good jobs by having a task force that will accelerate this cooperation on critical clean energy opportunities and on supply chains. And this is really working across the country and certainly with the U.S. so that we can capitalize this and make sure that our market here in between Canada, U.S. and North America is the most competitive in the world.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister. On to Mr. Savard-Tremblay for 2.5 minutes, please.
I'd also like to talk about softwood lumber, Minister. We know that punitive tariffs have a serious impact on the sector, and there is a potential sale of a company in Quebec, Produits Forestiers Résolus, that produces a good portion of lumber in Quebec. Have you had any discussion about this transaction that actually is an outcome of the trade wars with the United States?
I have not. I have not had discussions specifically around the sale, but of course, Resolute is an important company in Quebec, an important company that employs many workers in the softwood lumber industry. I have spoken to their CEO on numerous occasions about how unfair the tariffs are for the sector and for that company, and my commitment to working with that company, but companies in the sector across the country remains, so that we can try to to find a resolution to this is what I continue to work to do.
Mais dites-moi.
Well, can you tell me this? We're talking about a potential transaction in a sector that is a strategic sector. You say that you haven't had specific discussions with your colleague on this. Then why this? Let's take the automobile industry. Let's compare them. When there was Build Back Better, you had a mission to Washington. There were letters on the part of the government threatening counteraction. But for softwood lumber, nothing. And in your mandate letter, after the new wave of tariffs, the word softwood lumber isn't even there. You know, there's coal, there's critical minerals. But why this different treatment of two different sectors?
I wouldn't characterize it that way. This sector, the softwood lumber sector and the forestry sector, is incredibly important to Canada's economy and the workers that they employ. And I want to assure through you, my honorable colleague, that the sector can continue to count on the work that we must do to bring the U.S. to the table. And we continue to fight against the unjustified tariffs for softwood lumber.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Cannings, for 2.5 minutes, please.
Well, thank you. I just want to turn back to the small business part of your portfolio, Minister. And, you know, a lot of the small businesses in my riding, particularly those that are in the tourism industry, which is one of the main economic drivers in my part of the country, took out CEBA loans and other loans during the pandemic because they were shut down. They were among the hardest hit. And the rebound for that has not really happened as fast as people predicted. And so they're struggling to repay back these loans. And they've been asking for an extension to this loan repayment so that they can stay viable, that they can keep the $10,000 of the loan that was guaranteed to them if they repaid on time. You know, these companies are about to go under if they don't get continued help. Just to get, as things rebound, they will survive, but they need that additional help. And I'm just wondering what you have to say to them.
Thank you so much for this question. It's so important because during the pandemic, it really was and continues to be the top priority to make sure that our small and medium-sized businesses get the support through what was just an unprecedented time. You mentioned CEBA, almost just under 1 million businesses got that support. We have been hearing from businesses, and some businesses, not all businesses, many businesses are well on their way to recovery. Is precisely why we extended the loan deadline to December of 2023. I and my colleague minister who is responsible for tourism, we continue to listen to businesses on this, and my commitment is we'll continue to do that. I hope that what Canadian businesses, small businesses in particular, have seen from the government is out and out support to make sure that they weather through the toughest time to get through it, and that commitment, that commitment doesn't change.
We all hope that you're feeling better soon. Thank you to our officials as well for being here. I now have to deal with the main estimates. Shall vote 1 under Canadian Commercial Corporation less the amount voted in interim supply carried. On division. Okay, thank you. Shall vote 1 under Invest in Canada Hub less the amount voted in interim supply carry. Division. Shall I report the main estimates 2023 and 2024 to the House? Agreed. Okay. Thank you, Minister, again. Good health quickly, and I hope you're better much sooner, and we'll have an opportunity to see you back at committee in person. Thank you to the officials. Move adjournment.